Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond Bakari. Today I'm joined by Rhode Island Moderate Party's chairperson, William Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
It's good to have you on. Well, my first question here, you are the chairperson for Rhode Island's Moderate Party. This party was founded by former gubernatorial candidate Ken Block years ago. It's one of the many third parties we have in our great state and has fielded many candidates in past election cycles. Can you explain for those watching a little bit about what the party stands for?
Yeah, I think the party grew out of frustration with the two main parties. Traditionally, believe it or not, the United States is not a two-party system, but it's a party system in politics. But over the years, those parties have coalesced, and some people would say for the better, and some people would say for the worse. I believe Ken Block and the founders of the Moderate Party thought it was for the worst because it's polarizing. When you just have two sides, you're either for or against type of thing. And the elections, I believe, probably since probably just before Bill Clinton or maybe just after Bill Clinton, people haven't really been inspired anymore. And the elections have been probably voting against an evil instead of for inspiration. And I think that's where that impetus came about, where recognizing that most people are actually independent. There are most people in the United States and most people in Rhode Island, they believe a little bit of the Republican philosophy. They believe a little bit in the Democrat philosophy. And how do you find a home if there's not a spot in the middle? If you could take the name the Independent Party, we probably would, but there's laws against using that term independent. But it's really a centrist, open-minded. I could really almost say that could be the real name of the real party is open mind or open door policy. So that's where it founded from. And as the years have gone on, we've actually had 6,400 registered voters, moderate parties, people at one time. So that's what we're trying to drive. We're actually trying to drive the dialogue and the discussion, and at the same time be inclusive. So that's in the essence of the nutshell right there for what the moderate stands for. It's really a centrist, independent-minded, and have discussions. If you're not having a discussion, if you're not having a conversation on the issues, I don't know anybody that's really far right or far left that doesn't share some philosophies in the middle.
The party had lost its official party status in the state of Rhode Island after the 2018 gubernatorial election. And the rule for those watching the state is that the gubernatorial candidate needs, or a presidential candidate needs, at least 5% of the vote in order for the party to get an official party status. In order to get that back, your party would need to field a gubernatorial candidate. At this point in time, does the Moderate Party have a 2022 gubernatorial candidate?
Like the last election, last time, we currently don't have a locked-in candidate, but there will be somebody on the ballot. I can assure you that. We're committed to making sure that there's a candidate, a viable candidate. Once again, we think it's going to be a little different than the last election. I ran last time and I didn't quite meet the 5%. It was a unique election. The Trump train really sucked a lot of wind out of the election, and a lot of people turned out to the polls again just to vote against Trump. A lot of people showed up just to vote for Trump, and it left the third parties. And even the independents, we had Joe Trillo run for office. There was a couple other people, and they didn't poll very well. I think it's kind of unique because a lot of times the third party is considered a spoiler, and I think this time the independents and the Moderate Party, we kind of shared the vote. If they was all coalesced under one party, we would have had that 5%. So we think it's more than doable in this off election year.
Are you looking at the possibility of running under the moderate as the Moderate Party candidate? I remember you had told, I believe it was Bill Bartholomew, that not too long ago.
I think that again, I think there are people that I admire that probably have a better resume than myself, but trying to convince people in a Democrat state such as Rhode Island, and just the nature of politics, to get them to shake off the cloak of the party that they've been with for so many years is difficult. But what I can say is we're having those conversations. More people, especially after the Trump train and the disaster that we had last election, more and more people are moving to the center. So I think as we get our message out and as the campaign season heats up, there are names that might be coming forward. And the newest Jim Langevin news, where he's not running for office, has actually shifted, I'm sure, a lot of focus from the Democrat candidates and the Republican candidates to maybe start seeking that office. That might open up another venue, or it might complicate things. So that, politics is pretty interesting.
Your mention of Congressman Langevin's retirement actually plays into my next question. Is there a possibility of there being a Moderate Party candidate running for that seat?
Well, I think that was always more in line with, my philosophy. I've always been more aligned with the federal issues. I think they get ignored. I think local issues at the town council and the zoning board, I think the town council and zoning board, I think affect everyday Americans more than our legislature sometimes. I think those are the real bread and butter issues, and really people don't pay attention to those races. And then I also think the federal level, well, we always talk about, if you look at, for example, our 4 Democrats, it's always about the pork that they bring back. It's not about what they did. It's not about the philosophies that they expound. It's not about, do we curtail the police powers of the state? And when we do about Social Security and a national healthcare system, they're not talking about that kind of stuff. Nobody in Congress is. It's all about pork belly issues, and it's all platitudes. So I've always been more aligned with that type of office, but we're also stuck with we have to be a viable party. So we also have that gubernatorial candidate. So that's my number one focus, just to make sure we get back with our ballot placement and to continue that train. I know a lot of people are disappointed that the moderate party lost its status, but I don't think anybody's treated us any different. People still are allowing us to have a seat at the table. And I believe if we put a credible candidate on, I believe we'll be able to participate in those debates also, again, like we did last time. We were able to, I was personally able to stand up on the debate stage 2 times with the 2 major parties. And I think we held our own. I think we did a pretty good job representing the moderate party. So it's going to be interesting.
There have been candidates that have ran for other offices under the moderate party banner, for lieutenant governor and general assembly. Are there any plans I know you had mentioned a couple times that the main goal is to get the 5% for gubernatorial candidate. Is there any plans to run candidates for general assembly or any of the other statewide offices?
Yeah, of course. Down in North Kingstown, Tony Jones was actually on the school committee. He was elected. We had one candidate previously over in, I believe it was the Bristol area. And, lieutenant governor is, of course, a position that's always an interesting position because of, that's kind of how we started out with the Cool Moose when we brought my friend Bob Healy on. His position was, kind of eliminate the office of lieutenant governor and save $1 million, put it somewhere else. Well, him and I didn't always have a 100% philosophy. That's an interesting race. So I'm pretty sure we'll most likely be able to field a candidate for that office too, especially since it's leaning so progressive. Currently, I think there's a lot of opportunity for debate and discussion. Is that the right way to go for the state? Is it not the right way to go to the state? Should we roll that office into, an inspector general or something? I think this election year shows the importance that we do need that position. Lieutenant governor is important. Mrs. Raimondo stepped away. That could happen again. That could happen each and every time. So I think that the lieutenant governor is absolutely an important position. I actually think we should probably add some duties to it. Constitutionally, I don't think we're ever going to have a constitutional convention in the state of Rhode Island to eliminate the position. So I do think it's a one, and I think if we could put a ticket together that is like-minded, open-minded, and open to dialogue and debate, whether it's a progressive or whether it's a right-winger, as long as they're open-minded and willing to discuss, I think it'll make for an interesting race.
Starting off now with the issues that are going to be present in 2022 amongst voters' minds, rebuilding our state's economy during the era of COVID is one of the top issues heading into the election cycle of 2022. I know the party has an extensive platform in regard to the economy. For those watching, can you explain what would be the party's solution when it comes to rebuilding our state's economy?
COVID has presented so many fundamental issues for people's politics in the country. A lot of it goes back to what are your fundamental beliefs? It is a deadly disease. A lot of people have passed away because of it. We are crushing our hospitals, but at the same time, are mandates the right way to go? I know in one of the jobs I hold, what I do for a living is we manage a lot of people. National defense contractor, and we were deemed essential. So our people didn't have a choice to stay home. They didn't have the ability to say, "Hey, boss, I'm not coming in." And there was ramifications if they didn't show up. Same with the guys that worked at Burger King. If Burger King was deemed, these food services and supply chains, they were deemed to be essential, and so they had to show up. And then other people got to sit home and collect money. And I think parity and equity in those situations, and the hypocrisy and how we picked and choose the winners, I think there's going to be a lot of learning lessons. Lessons learned when we come through this. Did we do it right? Are we still doing it right? And even to this day with the COVID funds, we're picking winners and we're picking losers. And I'm not sure that we're doing it on science. I'm not so sure that we're doing it on equity. I think that, a conscious debate and an on purpose debate needs to be held. So it's equitable and it's fair, because, some people really, really got hurt, and they still are getting hurt with a lot of these mandates. But at the same time, people are dying. This is a real healthcare disaster, but imagine if this was a much worse virus. You could say that there's a couple of things that will probably end the human race. It's some asteroid from outer space, some comet, or it's going to be this little bug. And this is just a taste of a little bug. Can you imagine if it was, it had the same thing as the bubonic plague or some of these polios, where if it was worse? We need to come through this as a country. Again, go back to the federal issues. What are we? What are our fundamental beliefs? Because if we think that the person that works at let's say the town hall, let's go back to parity. A lot of the town halls are still closed, but we're forcing people to go to Cumberland Farms and work. And if they don't show up, we're holding them responsible. They're getting unsets. They're getting in trouble, and we're not protecting those people. But our politicians, our government still shut down. Everybody wants to stay home, and that's great. I think the number one way to stop the virus is stop moving. But what do you do when you stay home? Who delivers your groceries? That guy from Amazon that's delivering your stuff, or from Peapod's at Stop and Shop, that person has to be protected. Should we be compensating the people that are going to work more and better, kind of like that hazard pay people talk about? Or, I just don't know the answers. These are the conversations that we need to have. And if we keep talking like the Trumps and the racism, the division in this country, we're not going to have these serious conversations. So I don't have an answer to your question there. It's going to be tough when it comes to COVID.
The state also has an influx of federal money coming in. Some of the spendings of it has already been signed into law, but there's still more money left to be spent out of that federal influx of money. How would the party recommend the rest be spent?
Well, we've actually been talking about that. I've been talking to some of my closest advisors and some of the people that, hold the same beliefs. One of the things that we think we should do definitely is, a lot of this money was brought in to take care of. We just talked about it's a deadly virus. Next one could be coming down the road. Why aren't we doing the heating and ventilation systems? Why aren't we fixing and hardening our schools and hardening our things that the next virus will take? Why aren't we setting up and triaging those spaces for the future? Some of this money, it came for COVID, and now we're going to start using it like Santa Claus, and we're starting to hand it out like political pork to our insiders and our buddies. If you look at the couple of million that he just signed in for political reasons, there was some pressure there to spend this money. And how are they doing it? They rush it through in 30 days. I think we need to have a conversation, but I think it needs to be real dramatic changes. There's a lot of money there that can fix a lot of stuff for us. At the same time, go about fixing the issues that the next virus might bring. And how do we do this? Our kids are still not going to school in some of our school districts. That money could be, one of the things I think we need to do for education, for everything, is our communication system, like our highway system. I believe we need to implement a statewide internet system that's free to everybody. Everybody should be able to access the internet for information, for education, for ability to speak with your government. So when the government shuts down, I can get on Zoom like we are right now and go attend my town council meetings or my representative meetings, or just take my class at school. How many kids are missing out because of the virus, because they don't have parents that have the means? They have parents that won't even show up and pick up the computer if you gave it to them for free. What about having the internet connection at home to even get on? This stuff should be on every corner. You should be able to come to Rhode Island and log into the internet for free. And that's something we could do with that money. We could be the first in the nation to have a fully, that information highway, that information superhighway right here in Rhode Island. We could do one of those things. But let's think big. Let's stop thinking small potatoes.
Aside from COVID, rebuilding the economy, and creating a smart response for the influx of federal money, the legalization of marijuana is another big issue in voters' minds heading into 2022. It's almost a when, not an if it will be legalized in our state. Where does the party stand on this, the legalization of marijuana?
Yeah, it should have been legal a long time ago. The war on drugs has been an abysmal failure. All it's done is invite the police into people's lives. It's given them criminal records for stuff. Now, I was just shocked the other day. I drove down, there's billboards that talk about recreational marijuana, and we're still allowing police to pull cars over and give people tickets, and we're inviting them to our life I smell marijuana. I smell marijuana. Let me go search your car. It's a fait accompli. It's already over with. If people have a drug problem or a heroin problem, a cocaine problem, these are health issues. And I can tell you that firsthand. I got 28 years clean. I'm clean and sober. I've been in recovery. I know it works. Treatment works. People need to start talking about it. It's not it's like mental illness. substance abuse. A lot of people don't believe it, but I'm here to tell you, we need to decriminalize it. Let's put it that way. And I can't even imagine that we're handing out permits and licenses for stuff people can grow in their backyard. What do we? So you're a criminal if you grow it in your backyard now? It's obscene, the overreach that the government has started doing. That's the libertarian side of the moderate party, right? But at the same time, we're not working on that healthcare crisis. We give it lip service. We need to probably triple the size of our mental health and our drug policy here in the state of Rhode Island. The homeless people, the drug addiction, the mental illness, DCYF. We got some real serious issues, and we're spending it on a war on drugs that has failed.
Educational reform, shifting to another issue, pre and during COVID has been a hot button issue. The party has an extensive portion of the platform on their website dedicated to educational issues, and there's a bunch of bullet points and a bunch of solutions. So I'm just going to ask, for those watching, can you explain some of the main ideas from that part of the platform?
Sure. I think we waste too much money on duplicative services. We talk about charter schools. It might be coming up in a lot of your issues. McKee's always been about charter schools. I debated them about 6 years ago. Not opposed to them, but I don't think there's a solution. I think they move the chairs on the Titanic. You're just moving chairs around. I think we need to free up our free capital, and we need to have school choice. And the way do you do that is we need a statewide funding formula, and we need statewide a school system. We need to go to either 4 regions or a statewide school. You can't have the duplicity that we have over and over. Most school districts are actually shrinking right now. We're closing schools. We're redoing the busing systems, and it's that elementary school population is shrinking. We can do so much more if we regionalize, at least regionalize. And I think that we need to do that immediately. The other thing I think that we need to do is we're gearing almost all of our education on college-bound students. When we know more than 60% of our children, well, if they do go to college, they don't finish it. Only about 30% of our students matriculate all the way through college. We're selling them a bill of goods. We're giving them student loans on top of student loans for jobs that don't exist. And we're not training them for the jobs that do exist. Vocational training and certificate programs are out there. They can be done at CCRI. And it's also the number one thing we can do for our economy is if we want employers to come here, we need to have the skilled workforce. We should be doubling down, tripling down on vocational training. We absolutely need it right now. And that the reading, writing, and arithmetic, the days of teaching Beowulf and advanced literature, when we're not doing the basics, our kids are coming out of the high school. They don't know what a lease is. They don't know how to do their own 1040 EZ tax form. So, when it comes to civics and education, we need to totally rethink it. And it's going to be that technology that I talked about, encompassing with actually looking at our curriculum. We need to actually look at what we're teaching our students. Is it what they need? Are they coming out with the skills that they need to be a productive citizen, an educated citizen, and where they can take care of themselves? We believe that it's the number one thing to do in the state of Rhode Island is to fix the educational system.
Shifting to more of the vehicle issues, these are some that are going to be present in 2022 as well. For starters, the truck tolls, it sounds like it's going to be a reality despite the legal limbo that it is in with the Truck Tollers Association. And the concern is that it could be moved to cars depending on what the result is in the court case. Just starting off with the truck tolls themselves, where does the party stand on those?
Sure. If you ask the party, they would probably oppose against the truck tolls, but they're already here. There's a court cases as well. Will they come through the court system, or are they going to be favorable to removing the truck tolls? I'm not so sure. I think I'm with everybody else. They're probably going to say if you toll, you probably should do everybody. I don't know why they didn't do that in the beginning. If you're going to have the toll, a lot of states have tolls. It's a way to generate revenue. If you're going to do it, it's one of the less obnoxious ways to raise funds. You as soon as you leave Rhode Island, you're hitting tolls all the way to Maine. We have a house in Maine. I have a house in Florida. Everywhere I go, there are tolls. I'm not so sure I'm opposed to having it personally. Like I said, if you ask the party chairman, so I kind of wear 2 hats, the party is, they wish the tolls didn't happen. I think they're already here. Personally, Bill Gilbert, I'm not so sure that I'm totally opposed to it. I wouldn't want so many. If we're going to toll everybody, I don't think you need as many. And they did that on purpose because they're actually tolling the bridges, not the highway, right? They're not tolling the interstate. But I'm not so sure that anything wrong with that. It is a way, and will it tax people like myself? I work in Connecticut. I get whacked a couple of times, but with today's technology, you can actually, not toll anybody more than once a day if they commuted or something like that. So mixed bag on that one.
There are also concerns that prices of goods would go up as these trucks are delivering our goods and services are going through and getting tolled. Are those legitimate concerns to be concerned about?
Sure, absolutely. Anytime you add a cost to something, it's not free. It will pop up somewhere else. You know, if you add $10 to a parking at Stop and Shop or a parking garage, it's going to trickle through the whole supply chain. You know, that's kind of like the old talking point on, you know, the minimum wage. Is it going to pop up? Sure, it's going to pop up. It does. Everything moves around. It's fluid. Is it good, bad, indifferent? I'm not so sure, but yeah, of course it's going to, if you increase the cost of government, somebody has to pay for it.
The infamous car tax may be phased out completely as it's towards the end of the phase out. There are concerns from those that are a little more bullish on this of if it's going to get kicked back in, like when Governor Kacheri did it, where he cited financial concerns from the state. I'll kind of ask, you know, both your personal view and the party, since you were the the reference you made earlier.
Right.
When it comes to the car tax finally being gone, what's the stance on that?
The party's decisions, the car tax should go away. It's very regressive. That's one that's a little more than the toll booth, you know, and it's not fairly implemented because it's based on the age of the car and it's based on some arbitrary blue book value. They're not actually taken in. You can have a 2010, you know, Cutlass that's in pristine shape and worth $7,000, and you can have one that's at $1,500, and they're not taking that into account. You know, it's just another form of taxation. I believe the moderate party's position and my position is we really need to look at as a state. Why don't we look at all our taxes? Let's put them all in a pile. Let's look at the surrounding states. I call it the two-state hop. Let's look 2 states away from us. Let's go New York, Connecticut. Let's go Massachusetts, Vermont, or New Hampshire. If we take a 2-state hop, and why don't we look at all our taxes and try and be the most competitive? Let's try and realign them all so we're the most competitive, and let's start driving the economy forward by bringing in new businesses, bringing in new ideas. I think that a lot of times it's that the austerity, you know, we're not going to save our way to prosperity. But we're not going to, we can tax ourselves to death too, and we can keep people away, but there's that middle ground. We can use our tax policy to attract people, but at the same time, we need to run the government. So it really becomes, what size government do we want? But if we want to be competitive, I think a lot of those KPIs, or those metrics that we all look at in state government, if we did a 2-state hop, if we sat down and we had the Senate president, and this is something unique that we can do in Rhode Island. You can take the Senate president, you can take the Speaker of the House, and you can take the governor, and you can take the chief judge, or even the attorney general. You can all get in the same room within 45 minutes. And I don't know why we don't do that. I don't know why we don't get in the same room within 45 minutes, that within the first 30 days of being elected, and come out by 90 days and have a 5-year plan. What's that 5-year plan for our state? And it should, some of it's going to be taxation. You know, do you tax Social Security? Do you not tax Social Security? What's your capital gains rate? What's your corporate tax rate? There's a lot of these taxes, and to look at things in the vacuum, you know, what about the car tax? That's a big one, because, you know, that's a kitchen table issue. People are sitting over there, oh my God, you know, it's what we're doing is people are registering their cars out of state. But we also do that with the inspection too. Why are we inspecting our cars? I don't even know why we register our cars anymore. We shouldn't have to re-register our car unless you sell it or it changes color. Today, with the technology, a policeman can pull you over, and he wouldn't even believe you if you handed him a paper registration. He's going to call it in to see if your car's registered. There's no reason to have that stupid piece of paper. There's no reason to stand in line. We have bureaucracy after bureaucracy that's just causing taxes. Let's get efficient. Let's come up with a more global plan. But the car tax, again, if you cut that, you're going to raise something somewhere else. The real issue is how much do you want to spend and how much government can we afford?
That is also another concern where they'll cut the car tax and say, oh, we still need the revenue, bump up a tax somewhere else. You might see like a half a point in the sales tax. And that's an interesting take on the creating competitive tax base within our region of the country. It almost sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, because there are states like New Hampshire that will differ in taxes, don't even have a property tax. Is that kind of something where you're going for?
Sure. Let's look at that. Let's say if you played that out, if you put everything on the table and say, hey, we want to be the most competitive, maybe I can't go to a 0 income tax, but what can I do? What are companies and people looking for? What are CEOs looking for? I know, you know, there are people that talk about, I don't really need the company. If you want to tax rich people, you need to get rich people to move here. So how do you do that? You're going to cut their corporate gains tax. You're going to cut the income tax. Then the CEO of the big company, he'll come move here. You say, but you have to live in the state, right? If you want jobs, you're going to cut the corporate tax rate. You're going to make it competitive. You look at Elon Musk did. He just told California to go shove it. He went to Texas, right? And these things hurt. People are now making these decisions based on, what the legal climate looks like and what the tax climate looks like. And let's face it, that's the nature of the game. Businesses are here to make money. And so what we can actually, like I said, throw all that in the pot. Let's look at our education. Yeah, we could even say, you know what? Yeah, we're a little more expensive. Our tax is a little more expensive, but look what you get. You get the most world-class vocational educational training in the world. You got 17 world-class libraries. You got 18 world-class museums. So you pay for what you get. Just like, some people buy a Rolex. Why do they do that? Is that watch any better than a Timex? But, there's the panache and there's a lot of other things, those intrinsic values that you get other than the watch. And Rhode Island really needs to sell itself. We need to be polishing our apple, not arguing with each other. We need to polish the apple and show it to the world, invite people here.
Just going to circle back to the gubernatorial candidate, because you had mentioned that that's the main focus, and I forgot to ask this follow-up earlier on. Is there a expected time frame voters can expect an announcement of this candidate, like a firm deadline?
I think that's one of the things that hurt us last time is we didn't announce till about June because I was courting a couple of people and I had people on the fence, and I think we lost some traction. I think the media is paying a little bit more attention to us this time. So I think if we get out there, but I think we have to probably do it more April, May timeframe to really take advantage of all the debates and all the invites and that type of stuff. It's at some point in time, if you don't announce, it's just a constant tease, and the media, let's face it, we need the media. We're also a party that kind of regales against trying to take any public funds. We've run our campaigns lean and mean. Like I said, we were able to get on the debate stage 2 times, and I think we spent $140. And the time, when we 21% with Cool Moose with Bob Healy, we spent $39. And that's something else that we're trying to do is take money out of politics. And that goes back to having the internet free. We actually need to carve out a space in government for campaigning. It should be provided. A space should be provided so all of the citizens can see all of the candidates, not the ones that the media wants to portray. I got Daniel Munez. He kind of got shut out last time. And where's he at today? How come? I'm sure you're probably going to interview him, but you can't have only the candidates presented to the people. There are some really good ideas out there for people that don't feel like raising money. And I think the citizens are missing out on a lot of candidates because they don't want to play the money game. And I think that can be changed with, look at what we're doing today on Zoom. You can have 10,000 people watching us right now. It could cost you a nickel. And we could set stuff up as a state, and everybody could have 2 or 3 hours of free airtime, and it could be, a booth could be set up. So there's a lot of neat stuff that can happen. But to answer your question, it'll be sooner than later.
The timing is the key when it comes to that. There already is a major party I made the joke. It's like playing the game. Who is going to run as in that party? These next few, I'm going to shorter form questions. I'm going to do kind of like a one after another rapid fire style. These are going to be like for or against, should there not be. Is the party for or against term limits for General Assembly members?
I think we're for the term limits at this time. Well, we wish you wouldn't have to be, but because of the nature of politics and money in it, we've actually come out for term limits at this point in time.
Certain number of years. I know the common numbers like 12 years, which could either be 6 2-year terms or 3 4-year terms.
I think that we haven't really decided. We haven't come out as a party and had a position on the length of terms, but for the reasons, that entrenched, having some change and bright new ideas, but it comes at a sacrifice of entrenched knowledge, right? That tribal knowledge of how things work. So striking that balance, we think that though, if everybody can come to the table as, okay, we want to have term limits, then you can get to that next conversation. But what we're really big on is making sure that we're having the conversation, making sure we have the conversation. Once you pick a direction, and then you can formulate the plan. But I think you need to pick the direction first. So I think that's coming, but it really depends. And I think it's coming because of what's happened with the Speaker of the House already. And, that's change, and Mr. Scarci might run for the Langevin seats, which will turn that over again. So sometimes that churn breaks that power base, but it's really up to the citizens. So no, we don't have a time.
My apologies. Should the governor have line item veto power?
Oh, absolutely. If you really want to have anything more than a figurehead, he's administrator without it. He could say no, kind of, and then the General Assembly can just go pass it with their more than their majority, and they can override it. I would go a step farther. I'm a little more cerebral. It gets a little more tough, but I don't know that omnibus bills are good. I think we should be able to break them out so people can actually understand them. It's a trick to the voters. This is what the politicians, the Speaker of the House and the Senate, they get together and they cram all this stuff late at night. I think it's kind of like the 3-day waiting rule. We don't have people selling us stuff in our homes. We actually have a law that says, hey, for the door-to-door guys and stuff, we have like a 3-day cooling off period. You can change your mind, but if you guys put big sales on you, and why don't we do that? Why can't we pass a budget and it really doesn't pass for 5 or 6 days so people can digest it and there's actually a public input? They say, oh, we already inputted it. You had your public input 2 years ago before we put this thing late in the 12th hour. I think it's absurd.
Should the governor and lieutenant governor run on the same ticket as they do in neighboring states?
I think they should. I don't know that you can get there without a constitutional amendment, but you could do it by agreement. 2 people can get together and say, I'm really running because look at what happened this time.
Yeah, Matt Brown and Senator Mendes.
Yeah. And I think they can step up that way. You had Dan McKee and Gina. People thought they're totally 2 different people. It's kind of like odd because what happens if you had a Republican, or let's say a pro-Trumper and Gina left, and we would have, the opposite. Not saying that's good or bad. I'm not saying one way or the other because I love the conversation.
Yeah, there was a split. I remember the last time there was Governor Kachiri and Lieutenant Governor Roberts, I believe. There was the whole controversy about when Governor Kachiri, I believe it was to Iraq, he went on that trip and the Lieutenant Governor had no clue, and that created a whole crisis.
And you almost had a power play because can Mr. Kachiri even be in power being away? Well, the power of the internet? Absolutely. 10 years earlier, maybe not.
Another popular proposal that third parties seem to be more in favor of is electoral reforms like ranked choice voting and multi-member districts. Is the party in favor of those reforms?
Yeah, we've actually been pushing those for a while because, again, it gives people, let's look at the last couple of elections, the presidential election at one and Mr. Chafee. People, in theory, if you want to call third parties a spoiler or independent voters spoilers, you can get people that are elected that have less than the majority. They don't have a popular vote. They just split 5 votes, split it 5 ways. That ranked choice would actually show who's the more popular candidate, broad-based appeal, but it also breaks their power base because I think a lot of third-party candidates would be, if you had to do the second choice, I go back to the Ralph Nader campaign. I wasn't a real Ralph Nader fan. I thought he was overreaching government, quite popular as a third-party candidate. So was I believe, a lovely senator from Vermont, right? I think he would have probably, if we had ranked choice voting, a lot of people would say, hey, I'm going with the guy from Vermont. So I think that they're not giving the voters what they want. I really think the 2-party system, it doesn't care anymore. It's all about staying in power and it's about cronyism. And it's about playing Santa Claus. They're taking our money and giving it back to us and taking a piece.
This last political question before I do my non-politicals for the final ones. On a letter grade scale from A to F, what would you grade Governor McKee's performance so far?
I like Governor. I like Dan, and I've had coffee with him on several occasions. He was somebody actually I was really courting really hard to come join the moderate party. I think he's a very centrist candidate. I liked how he ran his city. I like how he comports himself. I think he's honorable and integrate and full of integrity. I am a little disappointed though. He now he has that mantle. You and I talked earlier on the phone, right? And the king for the day. If you were king for the day, what would you do? He's king. What do you do? I know he has COVID, but he can still get sick. As I said earlier, state of Rhode Island, if I was king for the day, I would have the Senate president, I'd have the Speaker of the House, I'd have the Attorney General and myself, and I'd get in a room and I wouldn't come out till we have a plan. Not too many states can do that. And everything in Rhode Island is their fault. If you don't like what's going on in Rhode Island, because it's their fault because they're in power and they've been in power a long time. Mr. McKee now has the authority to do anything. What's he proposed? I'm not excited. I'm not inspired. I don't know where he plans to go besides just, regular old blocking and tackling. And we got $1 billion so we can figure out what to do with that from our federal government. And I don't think that's being spent right. I think it's going to be doled out, through favoritism and through political pressure instead of with real ideas. But but I do like the guy. I think he's honorable. And I would rather have somebody that doesn't inspire me and doesn't steal from me than somebody that inspires me and lies to me.
What would that translate to on a letter grade scale from A to F? Because it sounds like I don't want to put like a letter out there, but I mean, unless you answer it like a B minus, B.
Yeah, I would say B minus. Or let's say for your typical for what a lot of people think of politicians, that classic joke that a politician is, I'd probably say even more of a B, because if I gauge him on that bell curve to other politicians, I still like the way he comports himself. I don't believe he's out there to steal from me. I think he might be a little gun shy because he wasn't elected. He doesn't have the mandate, and he's trying to find that way. But for a leader, I think I need somebody for me. I need somebody that steps up and be a little more authoritarian and let's get stuff done. It's like pick a direction and go.
These last two are my non-political topics, just to end the interview away from politics. This first one, do you have any hobbies?
I work so much, but yeah, I have a lot of hobbies. I'm actually setting up this YouTube studio. I've got my little camera right here. I got a granddaughter. Those are my real hobbies. I got 3 grandkids, and Olivia actually has a little YouTube studio. So we've been doing some editing and stuff like that. So we're trying to set up the green screen. I'm a big car guy, big motorhead. I love to travel. So generally, if I'm not doing one of those things, me and my girlfriend, we're out traveling. We do a lot of weekend trips. I have a house in Florida. I have a house in Maine, but my number one hobby is really traveling. I've been all over the world and I love it.
That's awesome. And my final question is one that I ask everyone on the show to keep tradition. In your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
I've watched a lot of your videos and I see that. I think it really depends. If you're outside the state of Rhode Island and depending on what age group you are.
Well, based on your personal preference, your personal opinion.
I think what I'm hearing the most right now, which is weird, is Taylor Swift.
Really?
Taylor Swift. Yeah, she bought a mansion down in Watch Hill, and I think we need to tap into that. She has a lot of friends, and she saw something I wish we would see it in ourselves. If I talk to a baby boomer, they talk about Newport because of the World Cup. If you remember the sailboat racing, and we can bring that back. If you talk to, then there are the people that talk about the mob and stuff like that. All the traveling I did, that doesn't come up. Nobody, maybe once in a while you get a buddy comment, but it's mostly about Newport. Right now, it's about Taylor Swift. It's about RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, right? That, we got a lot of jewels, Brown University. There's a lot of stuff to get excited about. And that's what I hear. And maybe it's the circles I run in. I don't hang around with a lot of negative people. And I get the Onlyville system, man. If you're ever in Onlyville, have a wiener, right?
That's like a block away, and it's always packed. They even got a picture. Man. They even have a picture of Gronk in there. Gronk
that was my first job when I moved to Rhode Island from Florida, and I used to maintain their restaurant equipment. I'd go up there at 3:00 in the morning. I'm in Onlyville. I didn't even know what Onlyville was. It was like, you go to Onlyville? I drive all the way from Narragansett, and I would repair restaurant equipment. I was 20 years old, and I do that at 3:00 in the morning. And they had a line then, right? And yeah, it's a real Rhode Island staple. A lot of things are. Again, I say let's polish this jewel. Let's start selling Rhode Island. Let's get out of this negativity. Let's come up with a plan. What's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan? Let's execute.
Absolutely. Those were definitely some interesting answers. I can only imagine this should lead to a push to see if Taylor Swift could perform at an inauguration for a governor. Why not?
Why not? Gotta ask, right? Yeah, if we would start selling, could you imagine if this became the vacation land of the Taylor Swifts and the Hollywood? We used to do the movies. Remember, we had movies here, and we got rid of those. People say, "Oh, the tax credit didn't do that much." Go ask the Farley brothers. Again, these are the things. I'm not a fan of giving people free stuff. It's like, because there's a big push in all of politics today, that class warfare. But you know what? People that create jobs are people with businesses. And they make money. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to stop making success, a dirty word. But at the same time, we also have to have that hard right, those far right-wing nut jobs that want zero government, like some of the libertarian candidates. I want no government. You want to run for office so you can get rid of the office. What would you do at a red light? If you had no government, every red light, there wouldn't be a red light. You'd have chaos at every intersection. There's a level of government that we need. And then there are also people that are mentally ill. There are people that have no arms, there's no legs. We have these kids at DCYF. They're dying. What did we lose? Like 18 a couple of years ago? 18 people at DCYF. That's not in the headlines. It's crazy. But who wears a Trump hat while kids are dying? We're not doing our job. We need to do a better job. But Rhode Island, great place to live. No matter where you go, it's, there you are. That's the old saying. No matter where you're at, there you are. So here we are. Let's get together.
Absolutely. Mr. Gilbert, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure of mine to have you on.
Well, I appreciate it and look forward to it. And as I told you on the phone, I think you're doing some amazing work, and you're the future. The
Thanks.
children are the future. Keep
Thank
it up.
you. That means a lot. And thank you for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future ones, please click the subscribe button down below for this channel and the Anchor TV Rick channel and the post notification bell icon. If you want to see the political profiles version of this, prior and future ones, you can see all those on anchorweb.org. I'm Raymond Bakari. I'll see you on the next episode.